The termination happened before noon. It was supposed to be my first day, a quiet one. Orientation, HR paperwork, maybe a polite handshake or two. Instead, I found myself standing in a glass-walled conference room while Vanessa Crowe, the newly appointed operations director, skimmed my file like it offended her. She did not look up when she spoke. "This isn't going to work," she said flatly. "Your attire alone violates our professional standards." The room was small but heavy with witnesses. 6 people sat around the table, all suddenly fascinated by their notepads. No one met my eyes. No one defended me. I glanced down at my clothes. Neutral blazer. Simple dress. Nothing loud. Nothing careless. And the ring. A plain gold band rested on my finger, old, worn smooth with time. Vanessa's gaze lingered on it for half a second too long. "This is a serious company," she continued. "We maintain a specific image. I don't think you're the right fit." I waited for HR to speak. They did not. I waited for someone, anyone, to ask a question. They did not. Vanessa finally looked up, clearly satisfied with her authority. "Security will escort you out. You'll receive final paperwork by email." Just like that, my employment ended before it had begun. I nodded once. Calm. Controlled. No argument. No emotion. That seemed to annoy her. As I turned to leave, I noticed Ethan Brooks, a senior compliance manager, shift uncomfortably in his seat. His eyes flicked to my hand again, this time longer. Recognition flashed across his face, quickly buried beneath fear. He knew. Most of them didn't. The lobby felt colder on the way out. Conversations paused as I passed. The security guard avoided eye contact, clearly unsure why he was escorting me. Outside, the city moved as usual. Cars. People. Noise. Inside the building, something had already begun to fracture. Because what Vanessa Crowe didn't know, what she hadn't bothered to check, was that my presence in that building had never depended on her approval. I hadn't come there as an employee. I had come there as an owner. And by firing me, she had triggered something written deep into the company's governance, something designed for exactly this kind of arrogance. I touched the ring once before walking away. It was never jewelry. It was a reminder. The system reacted before the people did. At exactly 1:07 p.m., an automated compliance alert lit up the internal dashboard at Aurelius Group. It was the kind of notification most executives ignored, routine, dull, buried under dozens of daily approvals. Except this one carried a red flag. Termination of a majority equity holder detected. Governance review initiated. The message reached Marcus Ellison, head of risk and compliance, while he was halfway through lunch. He reread it twice, then slowly set his phone down. "That's not possible," he muttered. Majority holders did not get fired. They did not get escorted out by security. They certainly did not get dismissed over dress code. Marcus rushed back to his office and pulled the archived shareholder registry, an outdated document most departments rarely touched. He cross-referenced the name attached to the alert. Elena Ward. The same name that had appeared on the morning's termination report. His stomach dropped. Elena Ward wasn't just a shareholder. She was the shareholder. 72% equity. Silent. Non-operational. Protected under a special governance clause drafted years earlier, after a hostile takeover attempt nearly tore the company apart. Clause 19b. It stated clearly, any action taken against a controlling equity holder without board authorization would trigger an automatic suspension of executive authority until review. No loopholes. No discretion. Marcus picked up the phone. By the time Vanessa Crowe finished her afternoon strategy meeting, the first cracks were already showing. A routine contract approval failed. Then another. Her executive credentials suddenly refused to authorize vendor payments. She tried again, harder this time, as if force could convince the system. "IT," she snapped into the phone. "I'm locked out." On the other end, Caleb Turner, head of systems architecture, was already pale. "It's not just you. Finance is frozen. Legal can't push documents. Access rights are reverting." "Reverting to what?" Vanessa demanded. Caleb swallowed. "To ownership hierarchy." Silence stretched across the line. Vanessa laughed once. Short. Sharp. "This is about that woman from this morning, isn't it?" No one answered. In legal, Sophia Ramirez dug through old governance files, her hands shaking as she highlighted Clause 19B and forwarded it to the board. Subject line, urgent, executive authority suspension by sunset. Whispers moved faster than official emails. The expansion deal scheduled for final approval that evening stalled without explanation. Investors began calling. And somewhere across the city, Elena Ward sat calmly, phone face down, waiting. She didn't need to make a move. The first payment failed at 9:32 a.m. It was a routine transfer, 7 figures wired to an international partner, as part of the Aurelius Group's expansion strategy. Normally, it would have passed through 3 approvals and disappeared into the system without a sound. Instead, it bounced. Finance stared at the screen in silence as the error message repeated itself. "Transaction denied, authority limit exceeded, this has to be a mistake," said Harold Finch, the CFO, adjusting his glasses, as if clarity might fix the problem. "Run it again." They did. Same result. Within minutes, the floor shifted from calm to controlled panic. Payroll authorizations stalled. Vendor invoices stacked up in digital limbo. Even expense reimbursements froze. Money, the one thing the company never allowed to hesitate, had stopped moving. Harold stormed toward IT, where Caleb Turner stood surrounded by monitors filled with cascading alerts. "This is your system," Harold snapped. "Fix it." Caleb didn't look up. "It's not broken." That answer landed badly. "What do you mean it's not broken?" "I mean," Caleb said slowly, "it's doing exactly what it was designed to do." Across the executive floor, Vanessa Crowe sensed the shift before anyone explained it to her. Meetings were cancelled without notice. Calls went unanswered. People avoided her eyes in the hallway. She cornered Marcus Ellison outside the compliance office. "Tell me this is temporary." Marcus hesitated. That was answer enough. "This is because of Elena Ward," Vanessa said, her voice tight. "Because I fired her." "You didn't fire an employee," Marcus replied quietly. "You invalidated a control structure." Vanessa scoffed. She wore a cheap ring and showed up looking. That ring, Marcus cut in, was a shareholder identifier. Old school, but binding. "It predates most of us." The color drained from her face. By noon, the board had been notified. Emergency calls were scheduled. Lawyers were pulled out of depositions. Analysts stopped pretending not to know what was happening. The expansion partner called twice. Then a third time. No one answered. Without authorized signatures, the deal could not move forward. Without the deal, projected growth evaporated. Stock models adjusted in real time, each revision worse than the last. And still, Elena Ward said nothing. She did not threaten. She did not demand. She waited. Because every minute the money stayed frozen, the truth became harder to deny. This was never about revenge. It was about control. The emergency board meeting was scheduled in less than an hour. That alone told everyone how serious the situation had become. Aurelius Group prided itself on structure and restraint. Panic was not part of its brand. Yet now, senior partners rushed through corridors with phones pressed to their ears, voices low and urgent. In the executive suite, Vanessa Crowe stood by the window, watching the city below without seeing it. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, rigid, uncertain. "This is being blown out of proportion," she said, more to herself than to anyone else. "It's a systems issue." No one responded. The boardroom filled quickly. 12 members took their seats, tablets open, legal files spread across the table like evidence in a trial. Chairman Robert Klein entered last, his expression grim. "Let's begin," he said. Legal counsel wasted no time. Amelia Foster, calm but relentless, projected a document onto the screen. "Clause 19B, she said. "Approved 8 years ago. Triggered automatically at 10:14 a.m. She highlighted the relevant section. "Termination or restriction of a controlling equity holder without board authorization results in immediate suspension of executive authority and financial operations." Silence followed. Vanessa leaned forward. "No one told me she was a majority holder." "That's irrelevant," Amelia replied. "The clause exists to prevent exactly this scenario." Marcus Ellison cleared his throat. "We attempted manual override. The system refused." "Of course it did," Amelia said. "It answers to ownership, not management." The expansion deal appeared next on the screen. Red text flashed beside it. "Status, suspended." "That deal was supposed to close tonight," Robert said quietly. "It's valued at nearly $50 million. "And it won't," Amelia said, "unless Ms. Ward authorizes it." Eyes shifted toward the empty seat at the far end of the table, the one reserved for silent stakeholders. "She hasn't contacted us," someone said. "She doesn't have to," Robert replied. "We made the first move." Vanessa's composure cracked. "This is absurd. She barely worked here." "She didn't work here," Amelia corrected. "She owned here." That distinction settled heavily over the room. By the time the meeting adjourned, no resolutions had passed. Authority remained frozen. Damage control statements were drafted but not released. Investors continued calling. And somewhere outside the building, Elena Ward remained unreachable. The board finally understood the truth. They hadn't lost control because of a system error. By the next morning, Aurelius Group looked functional on the surface and fractured underneath. Keycards still worked. Elevators still moved. Emails still sent. But money, real money, did not. At 9:07 a.m., the finance floor confirmed what leadership had been dreading. Every discretionary account tied to expansion, consulting, and executive compensation remained frozen. Not hacked. Not breached. Locked by design. Marcus Ellison stood over 3 analysts, watching red alerts stack across their screens. "It's not malware," one of them said quietly. "It's permission-based denial." Marcus rubbed his temples. Meaning the system is doing exactly what it was told to do. Across the building, Vanessa Crowe paced her office like a trapped animal. Her phone buzzed non-stop, venture partners, law firms, donors. She ignored most of them. She dialed Amelia Foster instead. "Tell me how to fix this," Vanessa said. "Override it. Patch it. Something." Amelia's voice was steady. "There is no override." Vanessa stopped pacing. "That's not possible." "It is," Amelia replied. "Because the control layer isn't technical. It's legal." Vanessa exhaled sharply. "Then find her." "We've tried," Amelia said. "She didn't use her company email. She never did." Her credentials trace back to a legacy trust, not HR. Vanessa laughed once, sharp and humorless. So she walked in, watched us, and walked out with the keys. Yes, Amelia said. And she never broke a rule. Meanwhile, Chairman Robert Klein sat alone in the boardroom, staring at the dark screen, where Elena Ward's name still appeared under primary authority. The title had been there for years, buried beneath layers of operational noise. They had mistaken silence for absence. At 11:30 a.m., a message finally arrived. No subject line. No signature. Just a secure access request and a single sentence: stop guessing. Start reading. Marcus opened the attached file. It wasn't an attack. It was a mirror. 6 years of internal decisions highlighted. Conflicts of interest mapped. Promotions flagged against performance metrics. Vanessa's name appeared more often than anyone else's. At the end of the document, one line waited. Systems don't lie. People do. The access request expired in 60 seconds. When it vanished, so did the illusion that this was a negotiation. Elena Ward hadn't frozen Aurelius Group to destroy it. She had frozen it to force the truth to surface, whether they wanted it or not. And for the first time, the people in charge realized they were no longer running the system. They were standing inside it. By the third day, the silence had become expensive. Aurelius Group's partners didn't panic publicly. They smiled on calls, reassured investors, and blamed routine internal reviews. But behind closed doors, the numbers screamed. Deals stalled. Bonuses vanished. A merger timeline quietly dissolved. Vanessa Crowe finally broke. She slammed a confidential report onto the boardroom table. This is extortion, she snapped. She crippled operations without firing a single shot. Robert Klein didn't look up. No, he said calmly. She exposed us. There's a difference. Vanessa turned on him. You're defending her. I'm stating reality, Robert replied. Everything she flagged was already there. We just ignored it. Marcus Ellison entered late, his expression tight. We traced the trust, he said. It predates the company restructure. Elena Ward wasn't just an employee. She was embedded through a contingency clause tied to emergency governance. Vanessa's voice dropped. So what happens now? Marcus hesitated. Now the system waits. As if summoned, the room's main screen flickered on. No announcement. No greeting. Just a live feed of Aurelius Group's internal dashboard, project approvals, executive expenses, hiring pipelines, every lever of power exposed in real time. Then text appeared. Transparency has a cost. You've avoided it for years. Now you'll pay it in daylight. Robert stood slowly. She's forcing a full audit. Marcus nodded. And she structured it so refusing triggers automatic disclosures to regulators. Vanessa's face drained of color. She wouldn't dare. She already did, Marcus said quietly. She scheduled the first data release. Tomorrow morning. Across the city, Elena Ward sat in a small apartment with bare walls and no decoration. A laptop rested on a kitchen table scarred by time. She watched the same dashboard the board did. Her phone buzzed once. A single message from an unknown number. What do you want? Elena typed her response without hesitation. For the company to survive, the people who poisoned it can't stay. She sent it and closed the laptop. Back at Aurelius, chaos finally broke through the polish. Legal teams argued. Executives turned on each other. Long-buried complaints resurfaced, now backed by undeniable data. And beneath it all, one truth became impossible to escape. Elena Ward hadn't taken power. She had simply removed the illusion that others ever deserved it. By nightfall, resignations began to draft themselves. Not because anyone told them to leave, the first resignation went live at 8:02 a.m. By noon, there were 5 more. Aurelius Group issued a calm, carefully worded internal memo about leadership realignment and strategic transparency. No names were mentioned. Everyone knew exactly who it meant. Vanessa Crowe did not make it to lunch. Her badge stopped working at the executive elevator. Security escorted her out through a side corridor usually reserved for vendors and deliveries. No announcement. No farewell. Marcus Ellison resigned that afternoon, citing personal reasons. Robert Klein remained, not because he was untouched, but because he cooperated. Regulators arrived quietly. Auditors followed. The system Elena Ward had activated did not escalate, it simply continued, indifferent to ego or reputation. Inside the company, something unexpected happened. People worked. Without fear. Without posturing. Without politics. Middle managers stopped guarding territory. Analysts spoke freely in meetings. Decisions slowed, but they made sense. At 3:40 p.m., the dashboard reset. Access restored. Accounts unlocked. Approvals returned to normal. A single message appeared company-wide. The audit is complete. The system now belongs to those who respect it. No signature. No explanation. Elena Ward never returned to the office. Her apartment was empty within 24 hours. No forwarding address. No social trail. Just a closed bank account and a terminated lease paid in full. 6 weeks later, Aurelius Group posted its first clean quarterly report in over a decade. Profits were lower. Trust was higher. The board offered Elena a permanent advisory role, full authority, complete immunity. The reply arrived 1 hour later. You don't need a guardian. You needed a mirror. Years later, employees still talked about her in fragments. Some said she was a ghost investor's daughter. Others said she was a regulator who went rogue. A few insisted she never existed at all. But in the system logs, buried deep beneath layers of new governance, one name remained. Not under leadership. Not under ownership. Under contingency. Ward E. And whenever someone asked how Aurelius Group survived its darkest reckoning, the answer was always the same. No speeches. No heroes. Just a woman who watched quietly, waited patiently,